purpose of any mulch is to reduce our water use, to insulate the soil and to stop the competition from weeds. But you can actually do it using plants, and we call it living mulch. So how do you do it using plants? Well, first off, you select dense ground covers and then you plant them slightly closer together than you normally would so that they grow into each other. And it works really well. Here I've got this gorgeous Artemisia genipii, looking stunning, and further down the driveway is the Myoporum parvifolium, which looks fantastic too. Both are doing a great job as living mulch.
Well, can you use fallen leaves as mulch? Of course you can. Anything organic will do a really good job. It'll insulate the surface of the soil and keep it cool and stop the weed seeds germinating. The only hesitation I have is with leaves like these, the liquid ambers, the waxy leaves of eucalypts, or the big leaves of things like plane trees. They can create an impenetrable surface and then the water can't get through. So drag them off the garden bed, run over them with the mower, and then back on they go. A great free mulch.
What's the best mulch to use? Well, to be honest, it's all horses for courses. Rocks and bark work really well in the ornamental garden, whereas straw and compost work well in the edible garden. My advice would be, always mulch. It's nature's blanket. It protects your ground, so therefore your plants do better. And always use mulch that's locally available.
Should you add worms to a new compost heap? Well, in theory, if you build it, they should come, particularly if you've got the compost sitting on the bare ground. If you've got the right materials, organic matter, moisture and air, then all of that biology that does the decomposing, worms included, will find their way into the pile. If you do build your compost in something like a tumbler system, which is disconnected from the soil, it's well worth giving it a hand by adding some old compost. So a scoop of old compost, it'll contain worm eggs, it'll contain fungi, it'll contain bacteria, and they'll help get the process started. So no to worms, but yes to a little bit of compost in your compost.
Recently, a gardening friend asked me, is it possible to put kitchen scraps underneath mulch and just let them rot away? Well, the answer is yes, but with some qualifications. Break up eggshells. Small pieces are easier for worms to eat, and the extra calcium helps them with egg laying. Things like rice, bread, pasta and meat scraps, well, they just encourage mould and vermin, so keep those out of the compost. And as for adding extra things like poultry manure to help break down kitchen scraps, generally they don't need anything at all. They have plenty of nitrogen and they'll rot quite quickly.
Can you put orange peel into a compost? Well, it does decompose quite slowly, so just cut it up into smaller pieces and that will help it along its way. The other thing, that orange peel in sizable quantities can be quite acidic and the worms may not like it. So what I would do is use smaller quantities and mix it up with all the other ingredients that you're putting into the lasagna of your compost. It will help immensely and you'll get rid of some of those wonderful orange peels.
A common query, can wood ash go into the compost heap? Well, yes it can, provided it's from a clean source like a home fire. But the trick is small amounts at a time because it's very alkaline and you don't want it sort of sitting there stale in the heap. So small amounts mixed in with green and brown material and some moisture and a regular turn. And that way the trace elements from that ash will be in your compost and then into your garden.
Why does my compost smell sour? Well, there can be a couple of reasons why your compost smells sour. The first could be that you've got the wrong balance of fresh and dry ingredients. It's that balance of green and brown that's so important in a compost heap. The second is it might simply need to be turned more often to get oxygen in there. And it also could be too wet. So if it smells sour, you can simply pull it apart and start layering it again, and I'm sure it will turn out fine.
Eggshells, how good are they in the compost? I love them because if you don't crush them up and you leave them like halves, you'll find that the worms actually go in there and procreate. It's an amazing thing. But what I like to do is scrunch them up in my hands or get a mortar and pestle and bang, 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 bang into small pieces. Eggshells, they make for healthy plants.
Composting is the cornerstone to every good garden. But can all weeds be composted? Well, it depends on how hot your compost gets. if it gets to 65 degrees and above, it should kill most weeds and seeds, but rarely do home composting systems get that hot, which means if we've got things like couch with its persistent rhizomes or bulbous weeds, well, if we put those in and they don't get cooked and then we apply the compost, you can reinfest it into the rest of the garden. So best to put this stuff in the bin.